Hello, good morning. How are you doing? And how is everybody today? Okay, so as promised, we'll be doing the interpretation training. And for you to be an interpreter, I've mentioned it before, you have to be an intermediate speaker of the language, intermediate level B2 or level 4. If it's Chinese, you can say HSK4. If it's French, German, Spanish, or any of these European languages, you can say B2. What that means is that you are already confident and competent in speaking the language at an intermediary level where you can work, school, or take up any responsibility that would need you to speak the language every day and every time. Then also you understand colloquial expressions, idioms, you can have long conversations, listen to the radio or watch a TV program purely in that language and understand it 100%. So for this, I wrote a book, and you do well. You want to buy the book so they can have details of what to do to be an interpreter. I'll just run through the contents of what I'll be touching. I'll touch on certain topics slightly, and for the full details, you need to consult the manual. So first is, what is interpretation? Types or modes of interpretation, qualities of a good interpreter, interpreting skills, enhancing short-term memory for accurate interpreting, short-term memory and interpreting, consequences of inadequate short-term memory. Then we'll have a general guideline for exercises in enhancing your short-term memory. And you have attentive listening for key elements. You have progressive expansion of recall, recognizing incoherent or ambiguous messages, remembering messages with which you disagree or which you will find offensive. And the last one, make your practice a routine. So that is 13 topics in total that we'll be touching. Now, before we go into that, I will just touch a bit of what we spoke about on translation. Remember, we did done translation already, and we did an introduction to translation. We touched on how to become a translator. We mentioned our translation toolkits, domain specialization, vocabulary improvement techniques and methods. Then we also talk about the steps on becoming a professional translator or interpreter. Then we listed 10 online translation tools. They call them CAT tools. Some people will say CAT tools, but it's CAT tools actually. Then how to master several registers. Remember, registers are vocabulary on certain areas of life. For example, we have register on medicine, or register on information technology, or register about marriage. So everything that you hear there would just be about a particular term. Finally, what can be translated and what cannot be translated. Before I go into this brief touch, I want to mention that not everybody can be an interpreter and a translator. Some people are gifted and they can do both without any challenges. It's easy for them to do both. While most people can only be interpreters, they don't have the patience or the attention for detail to be translators. Then for translators, those who are gifted as translators, they might not have the patience or the attention for detail to be an interpreter. For you to be an interpreter, you have to be somebody who likes to talk. Personally, you like to talk because you'll be talking for 1 hour without stopping. Imagine talking for 1 hour without stopping. Maybe you might not be able to drink water. So if you're someone who doesn't talk so much, it's going to be a problem, even though you know what you are doing. There's somebody who can endure discomfort for a long period of time. Somebody who is a people lover. You know how to read expressions, you know how to read body language, you know how to move fast with his fast speaker. and how to move slow with a slow speaker. Not everybody can switch like that in just the blink of an eye. You know how to switch from one person to another. These are skills that are inherent in people. So you're supposed to look at it and identify, okay, what skills do I have? Can I do this? After trying out both of them, then you choose the one that your personality agrees with. First thing is, what is interpretation? Now, interpretation is rendering a spoken or a signed message from one language into another language. Now, there are three modes of interpretation. We have consecutive, simultaneous, and sight translation. Now, don't mistake translation for paper, it's still interpretation. In simultaneous interpretation, the interpreter is listening and rendering the message in the target language at the same time as the speaker. So you only have like maybe 1 or 2 seconds delay from what you are hearing to what you are saying. Then in consecutive interpretation, the interpreter speaks after the speaker has stopped speaking. Now the speaker can make maybe a paragraph or a whole page talking about something, and the interpreter is listening. And in this time, that's when note taking becomes important. You are taking notes. When you're taking, you're not just writing everything verbatim. You're taking notes of the key areas of the discussion or the talk the person is giving. Once the person has stopped, you now interpret based on what you've taken down so far. Under consecutive interpreting, we have other ones. We have escort or travel interpreting, whisper interpreting, phone interpreting, and on-demand phone interpreting. So these are other kinds of interpreting, though not as popular as the other three we mentioned, but are also available. The last one is sight translation. This is an oral rendition of a written text. You are given a text, you are reading it, and instead of reading it out in the language you are looking at, you are reading it out in the language that's in your head that you are about to say. So you are reading something, okay, bonjour, aujourd'hui, je veux parler de, that was written on the text. Je veux parler de la situation au Sudan, beaucoup de gens meurent. You now say, instead of saying those things I said in French, you now say, good morning, today I'm going to speak about the situation in Sudan. So many people are dying. Meanwhile, you are seeing what I just said in French. That is called sight translation. Now, interpreters work in different places. In terms of job opportunities, they don't lack work for now until maybe the computer will come in and replace interpreters. They work in schools, courts, medical facilities. They work with social workers, international institutions, and many more. But the advances in interpreting technology has made it more virtual, and people are now doing remote interpretation, making it achievable in new settings and scenarios. So you can be in Nigeria and be interpreting for a conference in London without going there physically. As at 5, 6, 7 years ago, you have to be there physically to interpret. But after the COVID-19 pandemic, so many services moved online. Many services. Some became hybrid, while some moved online completely. Qualities of a good interpreter. To be a good interpreter, the following 6 attributes are a must. You have to be an extremely good listener, have excellent sensory, motor, and cognitive skills. You have to be culturally aware of what goes on in the language, the country or language you are interpreting in or listening from. You have to have self-control, cope with stress, and manage difficult speakers. You have to be emotionally resilient, and that you have to be strong. Yeah. Then your linguistic competence has to be top notch. Your interpreting competence, you have to be trained, you know. to interpret in different vocabularies. You cannot just choose, okay, I want to interpret in only this vocabulary. No, most times you might meet something from that vocabulary or register that you have to interpret in. um you have to know how to take notes and mentally transpose or verbalize from one language into another. A lot of things are involved. You have to be punctual, keep to time, be organized, articulate, be professional, work with limited or no supervision. Most times you're not even supervised by anybody. People just employ you or say, okay, please go and interpret. Nobody will tell you to put a bottle of water by your side or to ask the speakers to repeat themselves or to put their mic to their mouth. You end up doing all this yourself with little or no supervision. Then for you to get to a point where you are employed in an international setting, you would have to get some skills and competence certified by certain bodies. For example, we have the Ontario Council of Community Interpreting, that's OCCI. We have the Language Interpreting Training Program that you can take. Um, we have so many all over the world. You can decide to take some. Some of them are online and they cost quite a sum, quoted in dollars. But once you take it, it's an investment that you will not regret making, especially when you're interpreting in languages that are not so common, like in Chinese, German, Spanish. You will not regret taking up those trainings or certifications. We even have the one in Nigeria, which is the National Institute of Translators and Interpreters. You can sign up, write their exam, and pay your what's it called, your quarterly dues or your annual dues to the association and be an interpreter. The only downside that they might not recommend you for jobs. You just go around marketing yourself, unlike some other associations in other countries.